Join me in welcoming Pankaj Vermani, who is the founder and CEO of Clovia, one of India's leading lingerie brands, and much more than that.
I started EdTech in 2006. People tell me today that, Clovia was very well timed, and I always laugh. I say, if I was such good at timing, then why was I like 15 years early in EdTech? Bunch of my friends come and say that you should raise price.
Right.
I said, you are the malai on the doodh, yaar. I have my other customers where this price is important.
Yeah.
We were the first ones to actually get Bollywood star into this ecosystem. That was a 3-year-long journey, when we found this one superstar who was, bold enough to say, okay, let me try and do lingerie. And then it opened doors and everybody came in, right? I think I always keep telling founders that, you will only have...
Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of the Zerodha Media Network. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host Jivraj, and today I'm very excited to welcome a very special founder. Join me in welcoming Pankaj Vermani, who is the founder and CEO of Clovia, one of India's leading lingerie brands, and much more than that. Thank you so much, Pankaj, for joining me today.
Thank you. It's super delightful to be here.
I'm really glad to be hosting you because, when I'm hosting consumer founders, there's all the more a delight क्योंकि जो लोग देख रहे होंगे podcast, they've also used your products in some shape or form. They've seen your brand. There's a lot of look and feel, touch and feel involved to it. So I want to dive right into all of those and utilize the next 60 minutes to get your learnings. You've been building, you're a 3x founder. You've built Clovia for the last 9-10 years. You've seen a majority stake bought by Reliance as well. So you've seen this amazing journey. Before we get there, I want to understand the concept of starting up. You were early in EdTech, you were then running an incubator, you started companies before Clovia, and then you said that when you were starting Clovia, you had a very scientific method of approaching it. While your co-founder and also wife came up with the idea, you said that we will evaluate properly if this is a vitamin or a painkiller, there needs to be a strong why to start. As a young founder listening to you today, firstly, if you can share your thought process of starting Clovia, and then considering today's competitive market, how can future founders evaluate where to start a company and what is the reasoning to do that? I think that'll be very helpful, Pankaj.
Fantastic. So I think it's a great question to start with. I think you're also a function of your own experiences, right?
Sure.
So I started EdTech in 2006, right?
Yeah.
So people tell me today that, Clovia was very well timed as a business. You guys got the exact timing right. And I always laugh. I say, if I was such good at timing, then why was I like 15 years early in EdTech, right? Yeah. So I think it's also a function of you thinking something is working and the macros kind of support you in the process. But going back to the fundamentals, I think I always keep telling founders that, you will only have 3 best friends in your business. There'll be physics, there'll be maths, and there'll be the customer. There's no third, there's no fourth person there, right? Because these 3 will never lie to you. Okay. Everybody else will. Right? Your mummy will lie to you the most because she will always think the Raja Beta has found the best thing in town. Yeah. Right? So I think the most critical thing is to first think and understand that, as I was, speaking earlier also, that, whether it's a vitamin or is it a aspirin, right? And I think that's the first most fundamental thing to start with, right? So aspirin is something where the head is bursting with pain and the person is looking for a solution. Vitamin is just good to have, right? If I take it, life will be better. Right. So it's a very complex business to sell vitamin because vitamin requires education, and education is expensive. Or in investor terms, they say education is very low IRR, right? Yeah. So I think the focus for you has to be that whether you're, so just I always wanted to be an aspirin business. I never wanted to be in a vitamin business. I had done so when I had started with EdTech, I thought it's going to be a aspirin, turned out to be a vitamin, and then I knew. So when Neha started with this thought, right, and it had come from her own personal experience. So her experience was that she comes from a very small town, Haridwar, which is BHL in Haridwar, which is a small township, and she would say that kids after class 7th and 8th, they the girls had it very difficult in terms of even playing competitive sports and all, right? So that was her customer insight and thesis, and said that can I do something to make an impact? So her thought process was impact, right? And my question was again the same, again and again, right? How big is the problem? Who all want to solve it? And she would say, even if it is solving 50 lives, it's worth working on. So, so these were 2 very complementary thought processes that came together, I think, and that's what worked out well for us because I was always challenging the whole concept from a scale perspective, and she was challenging from a usability perspective. And somewhere we met midway. And I think that's where the execution happened. So for everyone, I think the need is the most important thing. And yesterday, in fact, we were having a very long discussion, with a bunch of folks about idea versus, a problem. These are two different fundamentals, right? So I think what we zeroed down on was that you have to first be focused on the problem, right? If you start with an idea, there's a risk that it may or may not be a problem. But if you start with the problem, right, then the idea that will emerge will already have covered the first step.
Yeah, well, that's very insightful. I think it's so important to consider, passion goes one way, but you can't just be driven by passion. You have to apply some amount of science to the entire process. I'm interested to know, a lot of founders often say that problem needs to be close to your heart. In the case of Neha and you, while the problem was close to her heart, it was an insight that she had. For you, it was completely intellectual as a process, right? How much of that drives your motivation to be a founder? When the going gets tough, what do you do then?
I always laugh that our product is actually the closest to heart, right? See, it was a very difficult business for me, right? Because as a customer, it took me 2 years to even understand how. I became attached to the problem solving literally 2 years after I actually started the business. I started with the pure concept of that this is a scalable model, right? It is a 40 size. It's very, very simple fundamentals, right? Going back to the brass tacks of why I did this business, right? It is a business of 40 sizes, right? So with the cup size and the band size, so it becomes very complex supply chain. Most of the brands, it had a very high death rate also, right? The mortality was a big issue, right?
Graveyard.
And it's a graveyard of brands, right? And the reason why it happened was pretty simple, right? Everybody thought that I'll make a certain bunch of products, or I'll rather source it from China.
Correct.
I'm going to, do some sort of a tie-up and do a lot of marketing, and I'm going to distribute it across the country, and things will happen. What people didn't realize that India was a very, very different country, right? It's multiple countries. Every 100 kilometers, everything is changing, right? Your consumption is changing, your body types is changing, your weathers are changing, right? So everything is changing. Your ability to purchase is changing, right? So when internet came into existence, we said this is the biggest democracy in the world, right? There is a huge opportunity to cut through the distribution problem, and that's what excited me. I said there's a problem, and then there is a very structured distribution way of running this business. Can internet come in and at least give us an advantage in terms of starting up, right? So that's how I thought about it. By the time I started to talk more and more to the customers, right, and frankly, having your wife as a co-founder is a lot easier, right? Because she had done e-commerce right way before I had, and she was one of the leading folks at that point in time in e-commerce, and I could very easily talk to customers, and customers have opened up because there was a woman also sitting in the room, right? Sure. The more I started to talk to them, the more I started to realize that it is an impact game. What we are doing is changing lives, right? So that's when we actually came up with the idea of how the brand should be envisioned, right? Prior to that, it was for me business. It wasn't a brand. So Clovia today is, the whole. If I were to describe Clovia in one word, it is joy, right? And the whole thought process is, and our tagline is "Happy is my superpower," right? And our thought process is very simple. Life of a woman is not simple, right? She'll get up in the morning, and throughout the day, she has to prove herself one way or the other, right? And me as a male coming from a tier 2 town, having seen that women was always supposed to be that second lead, and we learned. We have also, and I'm still learning our way. The biggest thing that you can do is that when she gets up in the morning, at least her. The clothes that she's wearing can give her the right confidence to fight that battle, right? And we said, let's start with that. Let's start with those 10 seconds in the morning when she's putting on her clothes that she feels comfortable and confident, and I'm going to go and crack today. So I think that's at least what started to become my driving force. And of course, it was through learnings from my peers, of all the experiences that we got and all the learnings that we took.
That's very interesting. I think it shows confidence that you can start intellectually, but eventually you have to develop this strong empathy for the customer, be very product focused.
Absolutely. And I think business is a lot like marriage, right? Sometimes it's like an arranged marriage, sometimes it's like a love marriage, but it's a marriage nonetheless. So for me, it was an arranged marriage where I thought, okay, the family is good, the person looks fine, let me get started. And then along the way, you fall in love, right? And you say, boss, it can't be better.
Super interesting, and I think you've come such a long way. I think it's almost going to be 10 years now. Next year, 9 years ho gaye hain. 500 plus crores in revenue, an exit to the name, and now growing multifold. I want to understand बहुत सारे decisions, the decisions you've taken in the business, let's say, own manufacturing, your sizes, very early on foundation was very strong. But before I go there, can you talk a bit about, just like scale of distribution, kitne log hain in the sense, you have a lot of tier 2, tier 3. So just to imagine how much business you do. That would be very interesting, and then we can go into these foundational decisions, because सारे brands जो अभी start हो रहे हैं, they are marketing companies, right? They're sourcing from someplace else, spending a lot on digital mediums and selling to the customer, which is not a bad thing, but you've done a lot of things जो 2015 में तो बहुत ही uncommon थी. Talk to us about that maybe.
So I think so numbers of course is something that I cannot share, but let me give you a very small insight that every 1.5 seconds you're selling a piece, right? So while we complete this interview, I would be very happy to go home and see the revenue numbers. So I think by God's grace, now the scale has got to a certain point where and thanks to the new infra that we have, a lot of things are very interesting. From a what was the other question you're saying?
The foundational
foundation
decisions.
start. So see, from a foundation perspective, it was very simple for us. Everybody we reached out, and it's such an interesting anecdote that when we started off, we would go out to people and say that we want to produce in India, and they would say you're idiots, right? You want to make 500 pieces, right? Because we did not have the money. We wanted to cater to so today also we cater to some 15 odd body types, right? We wanted to start with just 10 body types, multiple sizes. So we needed at least 150, 200 SKUs. So we said we can only afford 500 pieces. And people will laugh at us. Minimum order quantity is 15,000 pieces, right? If you want to do 3 colors, then 5,000. Okay. And I said, no, I want to start with 1/10. Sometimes I would say, can you make 250? So people would continue to laugh at us, right? And everybody would say, why don't you source from China? It is the simplest, right? Source from China, rebrand yourself and sell it, right? And our fundamental was very simple, twofold. One is that there is a huge potential. We know of factories in India which are making for global guys, right? And they've been doing it for a very long time now, right? Even if you go to Sri Lanka, most of the people have similar, abilities like ourselves, and they've created this huge business out there in terms of manufacturing. And third was, we said that this is a business of comfort, right? You cannot source from a third-party country and from a different body type structure and think that you're going to be able to create a business. So we said that we have to start from scratch. It was the toughest decision. Suman, who's our other co-founder, he has a very big background in production, so that came in handy. And I remember there was this one time that 6 months of trying to build this. I got up at one night in the night and I told him, this is not going to happen. We're not able to crack this. And then again, we spoke for some time. We said, okay, tomorrow's another day. So that's how it happened. So most of the folks that we reached out to and we said that, can you manufacture for us, right? They made us wait 4 hours outside their office, and today, of course, we are working with all of them. We don't make them wait. That's a different story. But one hack that we did was that we got hold of people who were working in factories. We gave them some infra and we said, why don't you start your own ecosystem? And as Siamese twins, we both grew. So I think that's how we were able to crack it. And now a lot of people are making in India, and this whole Make in India revolution has started today. But I think we started in 2013 when we were trying to really build it out, and the world is not very nice to you when you try to do something new, right? But over a period of time, we found believers, lots of them.
No, it's amazing how I've heard that last story, how you got these shop owners to actually start their own manufacturing units almost, so that they can also benefit, you can also benefit. And it's just amazing how we use the word jugaad, but that's like the true jugaad to actually make it happen.
But having said that, I think one thing that I want to point out is that I hate to use the word jugaad because jugaad is something which is not scalable, right? So it was a growth hack. Right?
Short term hota hai wo.
Short term hota hai, because we as Indians have started to take a lot of pride in jugaad, and I think that is which has brought us where we are. Right? China never said jugaad. China said that how do I scale this to infinity? So I think we built a process, and every time somebody brings in a growth hack, the first question asked is it scalable?
Very interesting.
If it is scalable, then we do it.
If
it is not scalable, then just trash it out, because you'll do it one time, and the next time it will blow on your face the next time you do it at scale.
Correct. No, I love that. Thanks for reiterating that. We will use the word process now and whether it's scalable. But this is amazing. The other side of what you were doing very fresh is category create ho rahi thi, right? There was no other like major player. You've spoken about this, that there were a lot of men's lingerie brands in the multiple 100 crore marks, but there were no women lingerie brands at the time, which meant that the customer did not have education, which meant that you had to educate them as well. You had to get insights. If you can talk about the customer side now,
Correct,
right?
correct.
What was the proposition to them? Like, I understand convenience, more designs made for you, but what was the insight and then the action towards it, and then maybe some amount of early marketing, early customers? That'll be very interesting, Pankaj.
So interesting things, right? So my father used to be a lingerie seller, right? So for the longest time, I used to stand out the store. So I have seen that journey, right? And until till '97, when I went to college, I think the only thing that I saw was the consumption of the purchase, not the consumption, sorry, the purchase of lingerie was happening 70% through males. So there was this uncle who would come to the shop, whisper something in my dad's ear. My dad would put like in a brown paper bag, and then there was another lipstick that he'll put in, and that's how it was taken, right? Over a period of time, I saw the number of women increasing in terms of coming, and this is early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. So over a period of time, my dad stopped that business, right? And then he moved to other things, and of course, then we started. So I asked him one time when we were researching that, why did you stop selling lingerie beyond a point, right? This is like around 2007-8, he said, I can't sell lingerie anymore, right? I'll start selling more toys and other things. He said, yeah, the kids come and ask for things that I just can't fathom anymore. And I thought that was our first insight. I said, amazing. So the retail infrastructure is not able to keep up with the requirement of the customer. I think that was the first insight we had. And we said, let's build on this now. This is a brilliant insight. Now we have understood that the customer is wanting more. She's a lot bolder. She's actually coming out. And slowly we understood that, in Trezor shopping and things like those, when she's planning for a honeymoon, right? I mean, I could see people like my dad would get more and more uncomfortable. Of course, things have changed now as well. So we started to then deep dive into this. We double dipped and said, let's now try and understand what more is happening. And then we start. So during the starting time, we spoke to a lot of folks, and we realized that intent was very high, the means were low, and tier 1 towns still had the means, right? Because they were the lifestyles and shopper stops of the world you could go, right? And there was a certain price point. But for a specific price point, right, the means were still very low. And we said, so my excitement was always tier 2. I said that, I want to go to this like huge mass ecosystem. And so even today, we have a mission 50 million in office, right? So we need to reach to 5 crore women. So when we reach our office, the first like big thing there is, mission 50 million. So that's all we continue to work towards. When will we change 5 crore lives? We're 20% there, but it's still an 80% to cover. So I to answer the question short is that we were able to find out, a very big set of customers where the intent was getting higher, their disposable income was getting higher. The women had started earning themselves, and they were now going out, they were trying to buy stuff. But in the smaller towns, they were not able to. Bigger towns, the places where they went, either the product was low quality and or it was very high priced, right? So we said, can we find like a place where both of them are like top notch? And today the beauty of the brand is that I have friends in private equity whose wives are very strong Clovia customers, and then I have a lot of tier 2 customers who would be earning 20,000 a month, and they are also Clovia customers, right? And that's the positioning we wanted. Right? It is agnostic to price points, high on quality, and very, very high on the customer aspiration, and extremely high on empathy. Can you be like part of the body, right?
Yeah.
So
and that's become the consumerization wave, right? On the walk before this, you were giving a very good analogy, which is key. We made the pyramid an hourglass now. Can you talk a bit more about how the Indian consumer wants value for their money, is high aspiration, but will not shell like exorbitantly large amounts? How does that work?
So the world always used to be a very pyramid structure, right? We would say that there's this, this economy people, then there's this mid-premium people. The mid has disappeared. Either they will be absolute value seekers, right, at the bottom, right? So, and you see a lot of these no-named brands, right? People have stopped taking excitement in labels there, right? And people like myself, I like certain brands because the label doesn't show, right? And then there's this other set of people who have become completely flamboyant about their, so, and the data is there to prove it, right? SUVs, for example, they were like under 10% by 2000, 2001, too, right?
Okay.
Today, it is 45% of the overall
Really?
market. So, and Apple probably will be bigger than HUL,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
Apple sold more, some 10
in
billion.
yeah, exactly. So I think if you look at the way the consumption is changing in India, it is phenomenal. So it is kind of moving towards both sides. Anybody who starts to take pride calling themselves, we are a path to premium, etc., it has disappeared. So even for people who are planning to think like that, please be very clear about your positioning. Are you a value proposition, or are you a show off? Don't find a space in the middle. It doesn't exist anymore.
Very interesting. I think that's a very, very strong insight for any founder watching and wanting to build in the consumer space. But picking from that trail, right? If the lingerie segment is such where conversation is very difficult to make on a more general basis, now it's of course changing. What was the messaging of the, for the brand? Like, how did you put word out that, okay, we are building for you, we are doing this, we are doing that? Like, what was the early phase of communication with the customers, branding, light? Feel for the entire product? How did you crack that piece?
So our early thought was very simple, that the brand has to have a very premium thought process, very premium positioning in terms of the conversations, communication, everything, and the price has to be aha.
Okay.
Somebody comes thinking, okay, let me at least go and check it out, and then they would like, what the hell are you saying? How can it be this cheap? Even today, a bunch of my friends come and say that you should raise price.
Correct.
I said, you are the malai on the doodh, yaar. I have my other customers where this price is important, right?
I want to interrupt there and understand how do you maintain this balance? Because it feels like premium products, to maintain margins, you have to charge a higher price also. But how do you deliver premium quality at an affordable price without compromising on margin?
So it's control your supply chain. The moment you control your supply chain, every step of the supply chain you control, you cut out some middleman, and that middleman margin you pass on to the customer. Don't try to keep it to yourself, right?
Okay.
And I think that is the thought process. Today I'm buying, fabric, right? And I was talking to, again, one of the listed companies in my space, and I was talking to the founder. It's very nice to continuously give me time. And he was saying that, you are here, the moment you go back to yarn, you'll save another 3%, right? So, it goes down there, and maybe then you should go back to cotton fields, so all. But all I'm saying is that the more you control your supply chain, the better margin structures you have, and then it's up to
then
you
whether
can
deliver, pass on value to the customer.
Right, and then it's a brand positioning perspective, because that, these are my costs, and then the math your best friend has to come and play a role.
Correct.
And tell you what needs to be done.
Got it. Yeah. Now we can, I think, continue on the branding piece.
Yeah, I think from a brand positioning perspective, it was very simple. We said that, so I wasn't able to find analogies, and then I started to tell my team that, I want to be the Swatch of lingerie, right? Where it's a great brand to wear and flaunt and say, I'm wearing a Swatch. At the same time, everybody knows it's not very expensive, right? So that was the thought that I had in mind, right? Instead, let's start thinking like that, right? And, so you should be cool enough for people to flaunt, right? And the product and the positioning should be such that price doesn't become a factor at all, right? So the price was always the aha. Of course, now, over a period of time, brand communications, etc., continue to push, prices as well. But those are very offer-driven conversations. Whenever we are doing a brand-driven conversation, right, we were the first ones to actually get, a Bollywood star into this ecosystem. That was a 3-year-long journey. When we found this one superstar who was, bold enough to say, okay, let me try and do lingerie, and then it opened doors and everybody came in, right?
Correct.
So I think Shraddha Kapoor, for example, has that absolute, she should be given that, credit that she opened the doors for this category to be open for women, right? Otherwise, before that, everybody was questioning, right?
Correct.
So, so I think we were able to put that imagery, we were able to put that right faces, but at the same time, the price was not something that we said we'll jack up. We always wanted to keep that. And the whole concept was that we want to deliver happiness in people's life, and that is our only mission. We try to do that in our office also, the way our office is created, the way we internally manage, of course.
What are some examples for that?
For example, the average sense of humor of our office is probably higher than most offices I've been to.
Got it.
It is okay to crack a joke, with your boss and, make him, make him awkward. It's fine.
It's part of
I'll
the
give you a
culture.
very interesting example, right?
Sure.
these bunch of kids who do reels in office, right? And most of our content is in-house, right?
Nice.
Like you'll always find this bunch of folks,
Recording
somebody will
something.
come to my room and say, "Can you make a face like this?" I would make a face, and tomorrow, next day, it will be in a reel, right? So that's the stuff they do. Of course, I'm the oldest, so I keep that angry face always on, but most of the people don't, right? So there was this girl in the content team, and the boss would have come a little later after lunch, and the boss would have said, "Yeah, we were waiting for you for this meeting, and why did you get late?" She said, no problem. Next day there was this reel that came on Clovia's handle saying that "मैं चाहे ये करूँ, मैं चाहे वो करूँ, मेरी मर्जी," right? And everybody was just laughing at the boss, "ये और पंगा ले." So I think that energy we've been able to build for over a period of time.
And that it enables the brand to also express itself.
It enables the brand to express itself, right? And of course, we'll have our highs, we'll have our lows. It's not always the same, but at least the core intent continues to be that.
No, that's super interesting. I want to understand. So a lot of consumer founders talk about this customer feedback loop, right? कि अच्छा customer will tell us what to do. In your business now, products are anyway so multidimensional. इतने सारे SKUs हैं, इतने सारे products हैं. If you had to tell us like what was customer feedback driving some amount of new product development in your business, like what was it these maybe different SKUs that you did, different colors that you did, different design types that you did that were very customer first? Any anecdotes that come to mind, anything specific?
So the way to think about our category, because we are very heavy on fashion also, right?
Right.
So it's a core category.
Correct.
Right, where we
You've
introduced
expanded
fashion,
now, right?
So
there's loungewear, etc.
Yeah, I'm saying, but from within bras also,
Right.
right? So we do a lot of bralets, fashion bralets, like things like those, right? Within
it's very
bras
design
also,
first, you're saying, within
very
bras
design
also.
first and thought process, right? So we'll do prints which are a little different. Now, which print will work, which will not work, right?
Correct.
It's the core style continues, but there will be a lot of layers of this of different prints. Now, is yellow working? Is black stripes on yellow working better versus the green working?
Yeah.
You don't know. And which part of the country is it working? Maybe it's not working because you're not able to all of a sudden see that West Med's not working at all, but North Med's killing it. So I think this business is it's not an art business, it's a science business, right? And I think the only single lecture of my college time that has worked for me is this probability, stochastic analysis, and statistics, right? It is phenomenal the kind of data that we guys are able to generate. So our thought process is very simple. Seeding the product is the art. Scaling the product is the science, right? So we will not stop you from testing because we have the infra to build only 500 pieces. Now, why don't you take the risk?
Okay.
It's a 1-2 lakh rupee expense. Take that expense, right? Even if you take like 100 such risks in over a quarter, it's still not 30 lakh rupees a month, right? So you take those risks that you want. But whether it will scale or not, right, is we will tell you. We will also not tell you. The technology will tell you. And there also, whether it is scalable with a certain caveat, also something which technology will tell you. For example, I'll give you an example. So certain bra is coming, it is selling very well, and it's selling very well in certain regions. We started focusing on those regions. We're saying, okay, this is a north heavy, big size product which is working as, at certain place. But we start seeing that for certain sizes, the returns are high. For example, right? So we'll say this is great. Let's continue to do this. But, since for 44 plus sizes, it's problem. And then on those returns, we double click, so we have this brilliant dashboard where the artist, the designer can see the feedbacks on her face, right? Collected from online and offline both, right? With the score, we call it the feedback score, the FS, right? The feedback score is right there on her face. So she'll all of a sudden start realizing, oh, the strap is thin to not hold, let's say, a big size. So maybe the strap needs to be thickened a bit. So we're saying that the science will start helping the art to kind of become a better artist. So I think that's how we do it. And one should not kill the other. Too much science kills the art, and too much art will never let science take over. And science is the only way to scale. Art is the only way to discover.
Very interesting. That's lovely. I think a lot of strong insights there. And I think what I'm taking away is when you have such strong control over your supply, you can manufacture by yourself. It means you can experiment a lot and you can
everything starts from that fundamental. Absolutely. If you don't have that that flexibility, then you're just somebody's stooge. Somebody will tell you this is the product which is available, otherwise go to the next shop.
Yeah.
So then there is nothing in your control.
You spoke about balance, right? Between qualitative customer feedback, what she wants, versus between data. What do you choose?
As I said, one
You have
cannot
to maintain a
survive
balance.
without the other. So as I keep saying, like it's a weird analogy, and this goes from all. So I think the creation is the same everywhere. The laws of physics, the laws of biology, everywhere is the same. The nature operates in a very, very singular fashion, right? In its laws. For example, this also goes for co-founders. This also goes for big, good businesses. This also goes for childbirth. There's the sperm and there's the egg, right? The egg is the stable one. The egg is the one that is always there, nurtures, grows. The sperm goes all over the place, right? And it is a combination of the two that will end up creating a child. So the vision has to be there, but the execution has to be very stable and operating, right? So the art has to be there, but the science has to hold. I think this analogy, if you try and put it together, you will also start to analyze, are you the vision of the company or are the execution of the company? If you are the vision and a bad executor, please stay away from execution and keep driving the vision. If you're an operator and you don't understand how the next year would look like, or you can't envision what company will look like in 5 years, then please try and listen to the guy who understands. I think that's the balance that creates great organizations. Singularly, you cannot create an organization on vision alone. It will just be a chaotic place which will die eventually with a lot of investor money, burnt. And if you're just operators, then you'll be a great, lifestyle business, but you'll never be a
Large scale.
You'll never be a large scale visionary business.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think like balance, a lot of people talk about, but the way you've put it into context is very, very helpful. So I love that. I want to understand the technical side of building such a business also, because everybody says in apparel, especially online apparel, there's a lot of returns, which means, you have to face that problem of the business. You have to burn a lot, especially in a category that you are trying to set up. If you had to just like quickly share that side of the business, right? Like how do you manage inventory? How do you manage NPD? We spoke in parts about these, but if let's say somebody is looking to start a apparel business today, right? In most industries, not specific to maybe let's say lingerie, how do they think about these sort of things?
I think the critical thing would be short batches, fast replenishments.
Okay.
Right, those are two fundamentals. And third is build a feedback layer in the middle, right?
Okay.
For example, till the time we touched the first sizable benchmark, we did not even have a planning team in place. It was just so we have something called the Monk, right, which is basically the sensei with the sixth sense. It's the automated engine which tells you what you should replenish. So it will take feedback scores from the customer. It will take your speed of sale. It will take your RVPs. It will take your RTOs.
Wow.
And then basis that it will come back and crunch a number and say, boss, this you should make and make it in this size ratio. Because while you will say make 1,000 pieces, you will end up making the same 1:2:1 ratio, and you will realize that this was selling more in BC cups vis-a-vis the D cups that you're planning, or the other way around, right? So I think I know it's a rhetorical answer, right? Because I've just spoken about it, but you have to start thinking very, very agile short batches, and most of the the biggest businesses in the world have case studies around the same, right? Of how short batches and quick replenishments, fast turnarounds have changed business for them. Yeah. So that is what we believe, and that is what we continue to work towards. Of course, we have a long way to go, but at least the thought process is very clear. So even if you are a new business which is just starting up, right, in the apparel space, do not think of a way to get product where you don't have control on the supply chain. Point number one. Point number two, don't try to do very big batches, because you will be crazily surprised of what the customer does vis-a-vis what you thought they will do, right? And the most brain dead of things will turn out to be wrong, right? And third and most critical is that if something has worked, please do not let it go out of stock, because that is the opportunity you'll end up losing. So I think between these three, you can actually run a relevant apparel business.
I love that. That's a very, very strong framework. On the second point, can you recall any not so obvious insights, or insights that would have just changed your mind? Like you went into a meeting or a customer conversation thinking ye hoga, but absolutely opposite things happened.
So maybe not conversations, because conversations are again singular events,
without
right?
context.
Yeah. No. Plus they're singular events. So as singular events, you always be a little careful that
you don't want to make a judgment basis.
Correct. So you should have a critical mass of sample data before you take a. Sorry, I'm talking too much statistics now, but
that's super helpful also, by the way.
But I'll I'll tell you where all I went wrong, right?
Yeah,
And
just so maybe insights that were counterintuitive to you.
and it is, I think people still laugh at my face, right? And we were contemplating making an app, and I would just start laughing at my team. I was like, what are you saying? Lingerie product, right? People would buy once in 3 months, right? Are you saying that now there is an app also that you would want to make, and it's a lot of energy that will go into that, team will be set up and stuff. And so I think I continue to push it ahead for good year or so. Eventually, I succumbed and said, okay, let's do it. Today, 65% of the business is app. And the entire team continues to laugh at me and say, boss, you're trying to be the visionary here, right? So where is your vision now? So I think those are the places where you start getting, and where we've been wrong on a lot of...
65% of your business is app.
That's
And what's the repeat in something like that? Just broad numbers for repeat?
So I'll tell you almost, so a similar number for us is coming from repeat revenue every month, right? So
So
it's
if a
not a
customer
cohort.
buys once, you acquire them
So
once.
I'm just saying that if basically in a month I'm making 100 rupees, 65 rupees are coming from people who have already purchased from us in the past.
That's
so
amazing.
Either it's amazing or maybe I'm not acquiring more enough customers. So there's always money on the table.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's a crazy cohort for us in terms of understanding, right?
That's crazy brand loyalty.
It's so yeah. I think it's also a function of adding more SKUs, right? Because
Variety.
right? Because certain categories people will only buy as much, right? And then even if they are loyal, they by the constraint of their consumption, they will have to wait.
Is that the reason also why you're now, let's say, gone into other categories as well, like beyond lingerie?
No, so this was a very logical progression. If you look at most of the look at Victoria's Secret, so we were again the first guys who actually brought the CEO of Victoria's Secrets on our advisory board, right? So she was like a 20 years president and CEO. So she was very kind. Sharon Turney is name. She's very kind to be with us for a year. Of course, at some point we'll bring her back. So so if you look at those businesses also, look at Pink, right? Pink became like a $2 billion business out of nowhere, out of thin air at that point of time, right? So and there is almost no innerwear there, right? So it's this category is so close to the customer that the logical progression is very, very standardized.
Right.
So,
because if I trust you with my most intimate apparel needs, then I will also trust you with other things.
It's the closest to heart, right?
Correct.
So you can always extend further. And lounge, athleisure, etc. are anyways considered to be an extension of this category. So these were logical extensions, right? If you are if you're selling Atta in your shop, then you will get maida also. Right? It's as basic
Makes
as
sense.
that.
Yeah. Coming back to the insights part, I didn't want to cut you, but
So again, very, very interesting insights we keep getting on products. For example, places where we went right? We started seeing movie trends, right? There's a movie that will come and there's a certain cage bra somebody's making. So we'll make it in the next month, and all of a sudden it'll start selling, right? So a lot of those insights have worked, but sometimes the most fundamental things that we feel are going to work. We made this one bra we had made, which we felt is going to do very well, right? It was a denim look and feel, and it was a phenomenal. And we said that, boss, this is a sure hit, right? Everybody in office was gung-ho, right? It just didn't sell, right? It just didn't sell, right? And in one set of folk, in certain channel, and we put it in the other channel, it sold. Now I don't know. It's the exact same customer on both channels.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's a discovery problem also. Sometimes it's So I think there are a lot of factors that start to play a role. So you cannot judge yourself without putting yourself out there. I think that's what we start to
keep trying, keep experimenting.
So even if I'm taking a decision today, I keep telling people, boss, it might go wrong, but at the same time, let's start small and then scale. That's the best way to minimize the risks.
That's super interesting. One thing I'm still perhaps unclear, and this will be very basic, but if you had to define a customer journey, that this is what the customer is looking for. You've mentioned high aspiration, value for money, good price point. But beyond that, what are they looking for? Is design, comfort, fabric? If you have to just lay down factors, right, that this is why they will choose Clovia, what are those? Very simply stated.
When somebody says that, people choose me for comfort, I think it's like, I'm alive because I'm breathing. I think comfort is a given.
Table stakes.
In our, exactly, it's the brass tacks. In a lingerie brand, if you don't give comfort, then please don't be in the business, right? So that's why comfort I don't put out there as even a factor, right? It's if you're a bra, you have to be comfortable, right?
Okay.
I think what we have done well is that options to people for different stages of life, right? So we said rather than making products, we'll start making solutions, and that's how we started thinking. So every product, right, which Neha, Som and team would do, every product that they'll think about is the first thought is that what is it that they're solving, right? And we come from there, right? So if you're solving it, for example, they did this maternity nightwear, right? A maternity nightwear which this was a regular nightwear. Regular nightwear, they said the insight that they got was that women who stay in joint families, right? In joint families, if you want to go braless in the night, right, then you're wearing a nightie, then it is a discomfort. So a lot of women used to wear a chunni. If you would see in a tier 2 town, right, where the father-in-law is also there. They created a nightie which had a frill here. So it was an auto chunni, right? So I'm saying those are the kind of things that we do. We do solutionings where we go right to the depth, right? We try and understand, what are the challenges during periods, what are the challenges post periods, and those are the kind of things that we come out with insights, and that's what we try to translate into a product, right? No pajama set they'll do will be without a pocket, because it's business 70% women in our office, right?
Yeah.
Everybody will go bonkers and say, boss, how can you make a pajama without where will I keep my cell phone? So very, very small insight. So people come to us because we are them, we are no different, So every girl in that office is Clovia. Every girl behaves like Clovia, every girl thinks like Clovia. Yeah. And if she's satisfied, then the customer will be satisfied. I think that is what they come. They come for solutions. And a lot of these solutions you cannot even market. Yeah. I can't market pocket bhi hai mere pajama mein, right? But it's a serendipity because you wore it from somebody else. Correct. Then you wore it from Clovia and you said, boss, this one always has something which I always need. Right? So those are the kind of things that we end up doing. And I would have 1,000 examples that will take away hours. But I'm just giving you a couple of examples.
No, but this is very fascinating, and true solutions, like you would outside in thinking is this is a apparel company, right? So you would probably play on design, fabric, whatnot. But solutions as a product company is the first interesting thing I'm hearing perhaps in a while. So that's pretty interesting. I want to understand lastly, right, the retail side of the business. Like I think the flavor of the season is that everybody's talking about you can capture early market share online, but eventually to build a large scale consumer company, you have to do retail. And you're, I think, 100 plus outlets, if I'm not wrong, maybe more. If you can just talk about like, what does retail mean? Because that's a very different muscle, right? Like for founders who are building like digital first like businesses, how do you set up like, EBOs, shops, how do you start selling?
You've been very respectful in calling it digital first, right? I have had like big fights. So this is the journey, right? When we started 2015, when Clovia was launched, people used to call us a private label, right? There was another founder that I was sitting with who's a very close friend of mine and doing like phenomenally well right now. And he had called me one time and he said, yes, private label like us. And I started fighting with him. I said, if you and I start calling each other private labels, then the world will also call us that, right? So the first taboo, right? In fact, my Series A check was written when, somebody called me a private label and the person corrected, the investor. The investor corrected that person and said, no, they're not a private label. They're a brand. And I said, just tell me where to sign, because you understand. So we are coming from that journey when people used to call.
Not even recognize it.
Right.
As a
brand.
D2C
has become a thing, right? It was not even a brand. They used to call private label. Then the journey became where they started calling us online brand, right? And then I used to tell them, either you're online or you're a brand. Yeah. Either you're a channel or you're a brand. You cannot be both, right? So, and I said, I'm a brand. Today I'm on a certain channel, right? And our thought process was always the same, that get data from the internet and use it to go, what the Britishers taught us best, divide and conquer, right? Yeah. If I have to divide and conquer, I need data to divide and conquer, and that data can come from internet to give me that critical mass. That was our journey all along. So after that, people, at least, smart people like yourself move to that, digital first story, right? And now the omni story has kicked in, right? So my thesis, day zero, was exactly this, that, as long as your brand sanctity is maintained, experience is maintained, your gross margins are maintained, right? And your overall supply chain is maintained. Even if you're selling on a thela, doesn't matter, right? As long as these four factors are checked, right? I mean, you will not sell a thela because the experience is killed and your brand is killed, right? So I would always say that we are agnostic. We have to be agnostic. Today I'm on the internet, tomorrow I'll be elsewhere, tomorrow I'll be elsewhere. Today we are on every channel out there, right?
And we will go where the customer is.
Exactly. You would go where the customer goes and you would try and be where the customer is. And then, it is pure democracy. May the best product win. It's as simple a story as that. And there's a big difference between, omni-channel and multi-channel also, right? So you have, that also has to be kept in mind. Omni is where you try and sell one on the other and stuff like that. Multi is that, I have my own different channels. One may not talk to the other, but I'm selling at all channels, right? It's a much simpler, easier business. So please think multi-channel. Don't think just one channel. It's very constraining. I'm saying it's okay to be online, to take that logical decision to be online, but don't constrain yourself to a very small audience, right? Think bigger and then decide to take the course, right? I will always be on the internet. When you start with that, then it shows your lack of understanding of what the world is out there.
Very, very fascinating. I'm just very, very glad for all the insights that are coming in. On specifically retail, do you have any interesting insights? Because very few new age brands have done well on a retail front. Clovia is, of course, one of them now. Anything that, young founders should know about a retail business or to, establish a retail footprint?
2-3 very interesting things I'll tell you. One is that however you play the PNL, at the end of the day, your end result of the PNL will almost be similar if you do it right.
Okay.
So you start saying that, internet is more this thing, but internet you'll end up spending some in marketing, right? So your exclusive outlet, you will spend in rent, and people here you will end up spending in warehousing and, and shipping and your marketing, etc., right? Correct. If you go to a marketplace, you'll end up spending money in the margins that you give them. So everywhere, or if you go to the standard distribution channel, it is the distributor and the retailer you give. So you will always have some or the other math playing out.
Correct.
But as long as your end EBITDA is in the zone that you want it to be, right, the healthy zone, I think you should be absolutely fine. So one fundamental is very simple. It's not like one is more profitable than the other. If you play it right, all of them are very profitable, right? It's not like all of them are loss-making. It's all of them are very profitable, right? Yeah. And that is something which we have seen firsthand, right? That is one. Other is if you're starting an exclusive outlet, then be aware of what your channel is, right? If you have 30 SKUs, you cannot start an outlet, right? The math will not add up for you, right? Customer ko bhi 4 cheez dekhna hai, right? Unless, again, I'm talking from a very apparel-centric thing.
Yeah,
maybe you're a very specific
different context
BPC
will differ.
Context will have very different. No, BPC will have a very different context. But there also, I think the logic will hold. You'll probably a kiosk will make more sense vis-a-vis an EBO.
But you need a wider assortment, basically.
Correct. You need a wider assortment on the EBO for your basket to be sizable, right? If you're a luxury handbag and there's a 20 handbags, the math will add up is very different, right? But I'm saying open an EBO only if the math is adding up in terms of your average order values. Correct. Let's put it like that, right? Can that back map into one product, being sold in a day and your math is done? Then so be it, right? So this is critical. From an exclusive outlet, please refrain from this stupid concept of one marquee store for branding purposes.
Achha.
This is a, this is a sham. This is a sham for you to, to justify your vanity, right? Because how many people will end up seeing that one single store? Either you open 100 such stores and your math is making sense for you to add up, then it's fine, right? But this whole, or you want to learn from it. Maybe I want to open one store and learn. Yeah. That is fine. Maybe there's one experience store where I want to learn consumer behavior. That is again different. But this one store for marketing purpose, I don't understand, right? So I think that's one thing which is very critical. All of these, I think third most important is that all of these have very different nuances, very different KPIs, right? Your KPI on distribution will be cash collection, which is one of the most critical KPIs, which in your own D2C is not even a discussion point, right? Because it is coming, either it's COD or your, or your payment gateway. There is no confusion. So all of them will have very different KPIs, will require very different skill sets. So get people who understand, right? And don't try and get very heavyweights very early on also. That's the other thing which is very important, right? Because if you get somebody who was, you're a 40 crore brand all put together, and you're saying that I got this guy who was the APAC head of Unilever, they say, what are you saying? What will he do?
That doesn't benefit anyone. Right?
So I'm just, of course, you understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Get the people who can roll up this news, be on the ground, right? Correct. Who can teach you also as much as, they know. So a lot of those things will also play a role.
Very interesting. I think very granular insights, and I think the constant theme is those three laws are always standing out: physics, maths, and customer.
Absolutely.
I think there's a trail for each that you mention at all points in time. So very fascinating. Can you give us a broad split, just trying to understand the business, like retail kitna hai, marketplaces kitna hai, your channel,
So
online?
numbers I can't give, but we used to be very small on offline. Today offline, hopefully it should be a majority very soon, right? Like,
Got it.
Like very soon.
Got it. And you also have a marketplaces side.
Yeah. We sell through marketplace. So we want to sell everywhere. Wherever
Got it.
customer is, we want to be
Customer is
there.
inside.
No confusion.
Got it.
Yeah, and we
Super.
are very big on marketplaces. We are, one of the leading brands.
Got it. No, very interesting. I think this has been a very eye-opening conversation. I think on the last part, one thing that I'm hearing is, and since you were a senior founder, I'm guessing a lot of the things that you did early on were already thought through. What I'm trying to understand is, in hindsight, some of these things are very well process-oriented, systematic. But through the journey, when you were building it, was the foresight very clear? Like, did you have this much clarity on year one, in year two, in year three as well, or did you establish it as you went forward?
So I started the conversation with the statement that you're
System.
you're an outcome of your own experiences, correct, right? So I think the beauty of being an entrepreneur, and we all know that, is that if you have visibility of next 3 months, you're God. So all the learnings, experiences aside, I think you always. So we were a business which was very difficult, where money raising was very difficult. Always, right? Because this category was very tough. Nobody believed in the category, right? The longest term, everybody. So when I was 50 crores, people questioned, when will you reach 100? When I reached 100, I said, 200 कैसे होगा? 200 पहुंचे तो ये कैसे होगा? वहाँ पहुंचे कैसे होगा? So वो तो journey चलता ही रहेगा. मतलब, I think till the time we continue, it will happen. So we were always very careful in terms of how the next 3 months will look like, right? So I was counting near-death experiences. I could count 7 in our journey of 10 years. Yeah.
Can you talk us through some of them?
No, so COVID was the simplest.
Yeah, right? COVID was a big one.
COVID was the most brain dead. So the amount of money I had in bank was 50% of the monthly salary of people. The business was anyways shut for good, right? For a very in a long amount of time.
How many stores did you have before COVID?
It was less, 20 odd. But so we used to have our warehouse, which we were shifting. So the night Janta curfew was placed. All our product was in trucks.
And that inventory
was all stuck in trucks, right? So and then we rushed it to one place, and the new warehouse, and it was dumped there. So it was just this heap of product where you can't handpick anything. It's a heap of product. It was dumped and people just left. So we were unusable inventory, which was anyways not be sellable anywhere with no cash in the bank. So, and I remember it was my birthday, and I was this 25th March was my birthday, 21st to 22nd March was this whole thing happened, and I was thinking maybe this is it, right? So, and
how do you get out of it?
Yeah, because we have some crazy folks in our office, man. I don't know who these guys are. I mean, what they do, what they smoke, I don't know. So I remember the team coming back to us, right? And I could, when you post this, I'll tag them all on LinkedIn, right? So that because name taking is difficult. So everybody just came back to me and said that, hey, this is the plan where we're not taking salary for this amount of time. So you guys recover
voluntarily.
Oh, wow. Everybody. So just came back, and it's crazy. You can't even talk about it like that. It was phenomenal. And then of course we have our own co-founding team, right? So Abhay, Soumya, Neha, Suman. So they got together and we started selling these PPE kits. So we said we have our supply chain. So I just suggested that we have our supply chain, might as well make some PPE kits. The next day onwards, the kids were somehow they figured out the kits. These guys, while everybody was inside their houses, these guys were rushing to hospitals trying to get orders. And I was saying, what are you doing? Why aren't you? So there are cases when Neeraj and Abhijit in our team, right? And when they're on the production side, right? And they basically were not able to cross the borders, right? So they requested their wives to sit with them so that they can say that the family hai, to sir, please jane do. So things like those are the hacks. One guy's parking area had become our loading bay for the longest period of time. So I don't know what happened. It was a haze, right? But before we knew it, we were able to collect enough capital to kind of restart the business, and then we continued. So I think it's also a function of collective energy. I think individuals can always become heroes, but they're nobody's.
And thank you so much for sharing that. I think we always hear the glorified stories, but it gets tough, and then people come together, and that's how you persevere. We can't just look at the headline of the exit and be like, "Nee, it's all a hunky dory, great journey." But these are the moments that help us empathize with entrepreneurs like yourselves and the teams so much better. So, really appreciate you sharing. Let's maybe get to the happy thing, right? Like the thing that gets celebrated, the exit by Reliance, large amounts, multiple hundreds of crores. I want to understand fundamentally, like when you're joining one of the largest conglomerates in the country, right? Like what do you learn from them? So if I had to ask you, like, what do you learn from Reliance? What would that be?
It's the power of scale. I think the power of scale and the vision of capturing a market. So I think that's the and that's a very big learning. It's a learning you can't get every day. I think the scale is the most critical thing, right? So where your thought ends, and then all of a sudden your thought gets expanded again. That hey, there is more that can be done. So I think those are the most key things that we have to continue working towards.
Yeah.
So we are all dedicated to a cause which we'll continue pushing.
Yeah. And granularly, how does it show up? Is it in their DNA? Is it in their leaders? Is it in the interactions? Like, where does it show up? Like, how do you? Because I'm guessing
It's very difficult to quantify. Yeah. It's very difficult to quantify. So,
it's in the little things.
It's in the engine. So it's the engine, right? So so how do you quantify human DNA? You can't. It's your being.
Got it. No, fair enough. Because it seems very fascinating because that kind of structure and then a new age company. But I'm sure it's going to be like super helpful for what you want to do in the future. What does it mean personally for the team and for you as a founder to see, a complete life cycle, and now you're still continuing and of course scaling the brand better than ever. But what does an exit mean for you and the team?
See, it's always gratification. I think that's very important. So a logical gratification is very important for everyone, right? Be it the management team or be it the employee set as well, who was part of the journey. So I think that gives us a lot of confidence. For us, frankly, we wanted to mission 50 million. So we still committed to that. We believe that this path that we have taken will help us reach that very fast. And so we'll continue pushing that. So for me, frankly, from a work perspective, not even a single blip of a day has happened. I haven't taken a vacation per se, off time, nothing like that. So it's a very clear path, and till the time that path is achieved, you got to continue pushing, right? So yeah, that's the way we think about it. Aage to, as I said, yeah, 3 mahine ka nahi pata hota, you don't know, right? So correct. You can only plan.
Yeah.
I sit and talk to God, and He just laughs at my plans. So
yeah. No, but that's lovely. I think this has been such an amazing conversation, Pankaj. Thank you so much. I just have a quick 5-7 minute segment that, it's a set of similar questions that I ask at the end of each podcast to all founders. One of the things I ask there is, if I had to ask a group of Pankaj's friends to describe you, what would they say?
Irritatingly funny.
Irritatingly
I
funny.
have to joke.
I would not have guessed that.
I have to joke all the time, right? So sometimes it becomes compulsive. It gets on the head. So I'm meeting one of them tonight for his birthday. So yeah.
That's a good one. That always brings out interesting things. One thing I often ask is, if you had to highlight one strength, like that you're like, which is your superpower, and perhaps one thing that you fear, not like in a negative way, but like not a weakness also, but just like a fear.
So I persevere, right? I mean, my brain goes numb, and then I can just do. So if, for example, my Excel sheet copy paste is not working, I can write 100 cells without even blinking. So if I have to do something, then I just persevere. I shut my mind and say, I have to do this. It is mundane, it is boring, but it is my job and I have to do the best I can. One thing that I fear is that I have to start learning to be politically correct, right? Because I always feel that even if you are, sweeping the floor, sweep it like nobody else has ever done it, right? So I think that's and sometimes when you feel that other people are not understanding it, right? It's your job to train them for it rather than feel bad about it, right? So that is one thing, that's one journey that I continue to go through for 20 years and it's still going on.
Yeah. So you fear to be politically correct, meaning you are mostly yourself and you want to be, ki nahi hona chahiye?
Then I want to be a little bit more, so the young generation is very different.
Yeah.
So I have to learn with the times of communicating the right message
to them.
To them, right? Yeah. So evolve with the time, to to train them to be as as crazy as they can be in terms of bringing on the best in themselves.
Yeah.
So that's a learning.
That's
for me.
lovely. And thanks for mentioning perseverance. I think at least like while I have not built a company, so much of my learning from founders, and my favorite book is this one called Grit, where she talks about perseverance as the key trait of success in successful people, as they call it. So I love that word, and that's what I try to practice with the podcast. My third last question is actually, I love when founders actually share consumer stories. So, if you can highlight one or two of your favorite consumer stories, right? Like when somebody was either very happy or when somebody was really surprised, but there was this delight moment.
So can I give you a funny story?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let me give you a funny story, right? So this one guy who had gifted his girlfriend some lingerie.
Okay.
Right. And apparently the mother of the girlfriend didn't know him and she caught it and it was escalated, right? So he reached out to our customer care center saying that I have gotten caught, right? So can you guys issue a letter saying that it wasn't me, right? It's that we have shipped it to a wrong place. So it was sent by him to somebody else, but it has reached the wrong place, right? And then it got escalated all the way to Neha, and Neha and I was discussing with me, and I started laughing and said, if somebody's house is getting made because you might as well do it. So we actually wrote a letter saying that, madam, please forgive us. It's the company's fault, not our customers.
Wow. Wow. We should make a reel out of this and tag that customer maybe. And that could be fun, but exciting. I would not have guessed that at all again. Very, very exciting.
This category has funny stories.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, if you want to share a second one, we can do that also. Anything that comes to mind. But
I can tell you like a story which maybe you should not put it anywhere. But so I was shared one time that there's an order that had gone from the boys' hostel to the girls' hostel in my college. And I was saying, see, now the kids have started growing up.
Nice. No, very exciting. I can imagine the interesting, diverse things that you get to experience.
Correct.
Very exciting. For the second last question, Pankaj, one of the things that you mentioned in a previous talk, and I feel does not get spoken of enough, is this: founders have this magical habit of asking for help. And you've spoken about the importance of having a network, seeking out for help, having a support system around you. What does that mean? Like, who are the people who have helped you along the journey? Not name-wise, but like just why is that an important thing, A? And how have you cultivated that habit of proactively reaching out? Because apne actually, you've given examples in other conversations as well where you've cited that, I've spoken to a CEO, I've spoken to this person. Right. And then you've spoken about the importance of cultivating this network. I don't think it's still table stakes, right? People still sometimes can't ask for help as easily. So if you can share thoughts on this, I would love that.
So it's sometimes you'll sit waiting to take decisions, right? And all it needs is like one phone call, the right phone call at the right time to the right guy to guide you in the right way, right?
Yeah.
So for example, I think he would not remember, but the reason why I started my exclusive outlets was because I was trying to figure out whether I should do a owned store versus a franchisee store, and I was not able to figure out, and I did not have money for owned store, I did not have the know-how of franchisee store. So I was contemplating, and I got an opportunity to speak to Supam from First Cry. I reached out and I said, sir, what should I do? He said, what is it that you can do? I told him, this is what I can do. He said, if you have only one option to do it, either you don't do it and sit on it, or you do that and try from there. That's all he said. And I think I just put the phone down and I started working on it. So sometimes when people who have been there, done that, they give you a very clear clarity, or they show you your own mirror. All of a sudden you start realizing, and these are good folks who themselves may not remember how much impact they put on other people. But I think, and that's what I think everybody tries to do also. So that's a learning for me. That every time somebody reaches out, I try my best to give the best advice, because these advices are where I got right. So yeah, I think
that's lovely to mention. I think that last part especially is something that everybody should understand, and thank you so much for sharing. For the last question, I think what I was curious to understand is you also have a theater side to you. You're very close to your IIT Delhi folks as well. I want to understand that in this like entrepreneurial hustle, what are things that are core to you that you still maintain? Because I think the broad objective of the podcast is to humanize the entrepreneurial journey, and we only see the good parts, right? But I would love to understand the non-entrepreneurial maybe side of you as well as we end, and maybe I don't want to like dramatize and say challenges, yeah, what are the trade-offs, but there are trade-offs life, right? Because that's how life is. So if you can talk about some of this as we end on a philosophical level, personal level, that would be lovely to end the conversation, Pankaj.
I think 2-3 things are very critical. One is one is I am a Reiki Rajyog initiate, right? So I've been doing it for 24 years now. I got initiated in January of 2000. So this 24-year journey has probably kept me sane through all the highs and lows of life, right? Because 3 businesses, I don't think I would have taken a month's break ever in my life, right? So, but it keeps you sane, it keeps you happy all the time. So you should have some sort of a meditative spiritual practice, because it's all about energies, right? And E is equal to MC square is an absolute, so it's all science, right? It's proven
Physics.
science, right?
Yeah.
Right, physics. There you go.
Yours.
So I think it just boils down to that have some sort of a meditative practice which
Keeps you sane.
which keeps you sane, which keeps you sane from inside, right? Keeps you on the ground and at all points of time, right? So no kinds of highs and lows have impacted me beyond a certain point because of these meditative practices. And the happy side is theatre. I think that's my happy place. I have not been able to do it ever since the acquisition, because there's a lot of work we are doing and we're very excited what we're doing. But for me, for example, the happiest time is when I'm in theatre. Happiest time is when I'm performing. I'll start again, I think, when I get time. But and it does take away a lot, and it requires. So Neha, my wife, and Neil, my son. So last time I did a show, there was 14 shows, and my son was like, I think 6 years old, and he attended all 14. So
Oh, wow.
so I think it does impact the family, but I think the family starts to support you, then there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
I think that, and the third is, I think, from your friends and your and your network or ecosystem that we
Yeah.
call. I think it's okay to never be there when it's a joy time, it's fun time, right? It's all right. I mean, if you're not there for his birthday party or marriage, who cares, right? There'll be many others. But if somebody needs help and you're not there, I think that's when you've screwed it all up. Then all your whatever you've become, you're not worth it.
Yeah.
I think so. That's the fundamental thumb rule I personally follow in my life. I think if it's okay to be not there when people are celebrating, but when somebody needs a shoulder, then you have to be there. I think that's my single biggest mantra in life.
That's lovely. That's such an awesome thing. I wanted to end here, but very quickly this came to mind, right? What is it like building a company with your, life partner as well as who's a co-founder? Like, what is that dynamic like, and how does that work in your life?
So it has its positives and negatives. Right? Negative is that the business never ends, right? So even if you come back home, so it's very difficult to. Even if you say that 9 o'clock, if you're home, you cut off. It doesn't happen, right? Because one phone call will come, and she would say, what happened? And then you are crawling back into, that study
Work
and saying,
mode.
hey, what happened? Share with me also, So it's very difficult to do that. The positive side is that, it's your
Trust.
other half. So it's, you don't have to question, right? I mean, if I have read something and she'll sign, if she's read something, I'll sign. So all of a sudden your work is down by 50%. Because 90% of the time, a founder is looking over his shoulder of, what can go wrong, right?
Correct.
So that goes down to 45%, right? So somebody else is looking over you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That the saying that, a co-founder relationship is like a marriage is very literal in this case.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's amazing. But thank you so much, Pankaj. I think this has been such a well-rounded conversation. I've learned personally so much about business building from you, and so candid. I didn't feel like this was a podcast to begin with. I mean, it felt such a general.
I ended up saying a lot which I'm not even sure I should. So
This has been great. Thank you so much for your time, and it's been such a pleasure hosting you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Hello. If you made it this far, you've probably watched the entire episode. And if you've done that, I'm really grateful. I and my team try to put in a lot of effort to ensure that we can bring the best quality content to you. So if you liked the episode, if you watched it thus far, my request to you is to share it with people, to subscribe to the channel, and to ensure that we can keep growing. We are everything and anything only because of you, our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll keep bringing to you amazing content. Cheers.